August 1942. For 8 months, the Imperial Japanese Navy had run wild across the Pacific. Pearl Harbor, Wake Island, the Philippines, Singapore. One disaster after another for the Allies. But now, the United States was finally ready to stop running and start fighting. The target was an obscure, malaria-ridden island in the Solomons chain that few Americans could even point to on a map. Guadalcanal. The Marines landed on August 7th and quickly seized the unfinished Japanese airfield. It seemed too easy, and it was because the real enemy wasn't just the Japanese garrison, it was the island itself. This was a green hell. Rotting vegetation, suffocating heat, and a jungle so dense it felt like it was closing in on you. But the silence of the jungle was deceptive. While the Marines dug in around the airfield, the Japanese High Command in Rabaul was preparing a counterstrike. They were sending their best. They were sending the Ichiki detachment. It is important to understand the mindset of the Japanese army at this specific moment in history. They were suffering from what historians call victory disease. They had won so easily, for so long, that they began to believe their own propaganda. Colonel Kiyonao Ichiki was a traditionalist. He commanded the elite 28th Infantry Regiment. To him, the American Marines were soft, undisciplined, and spiritually weak. He believed that no amount of industrial firepower could stand against the Yamato Damashi, the spiritual spirit of Japan. So, when Ichiki landed on Guadalcanal with his first echelon of about 900 men, he didn't wait for the rest of his troops. He didn't wait for artillery support. He decided to attack immediately. He marched his men west, straight toward the marine perimeter at the Ailu River, which American maps had incorrectly labeled Alligator Creek. Night fell on August 21st. In the Pacific, night doesn't just happen. It drops like a curtain. For hours, there was only the sound of insects and the river lapping against the sandbar. The Marines strained their eyes against the blackness. Then, at 0300 hours, the jungle exploded, screaming Banzai. The first wave of Japanese infantry charged out of the tree line and onto the sandbar. They were surging straight into the teeth of the American defenses. The Marines opened up. The darkness was suddenly ripped apart by muzzle flashes and magnesium flares drifting overhead. The lighting was surreal, a flickering strobe effect that turned the charging soldiers into jerky, horrific silhouettes. The primary weapon of the night was the M1917 Browning heavy machine gun. Water-cooled and relentless, it could fire indefinitely without overheating. But the Marines had another surprise. They had wheeled 37mm anti-tank guns right up to the front line. Since there were no Japanese tanks, they loaded these guns with canister shot, essentially giant shotgun shells filled with hundreds of steel balls. The effect was devastating. The canister rounds turned the sandbar into a slaughterhouse, despite the wall of steel. The Japanese kept coming. This was the shock of Guadalcanal. In European wars, when a unit takes 30 or 40% casualties, it breaks. It retreats, but the Ichiki detachment did not break. They climbed over their own dead to get to the barbed wire. The fighting devolved into savage hand-to-hand combat. Knives against bayonets. Helmets against rifle butts. The Marines also learned a grim lesson that night. When Japanese soldiers lay wounded, they did not call for help. They waited. When a Navy corpsman would approach to offer medical aid, the wounded soldier would pull the pin on a grenade. Grenade! There was no chivalry here. This was a war of extermination. By dawn, the attacks finally ceased. Colonel Ichiki, realizing that his soft enemy had completely destroyed his elite unit, burned his regimental colors. When the sun rose over the coconut palms, the scale of the disaster was visible. The sandbar at the mouth of the river was carpeted with bodies. Of the 900 men Ichiki led into battle, nearly 800 were dead. The Marines had lost fewer than 40. Somewhere in the jungle, Colonel Ichiki performed ritual suicide to atone for his failure. The Battle of the Tenaru was a small engagement by World War II standards, but its psychological impact was massive. For the Americans, it proved that the Japanese supermen could be stopped. They bled just like anyone else. For the Japanese, it was a terrifying wake-up call. The spiritual power of the samurai had run headlong into the industrial power of the United States. And it had lost. The battle for Guadalcanal would drag on for 6 more months of hell. But the myth of Japanese invincibility died that night on the sandbar.